Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo. We're here at the South Park Center. I'm delighted to join Radha with her movie, Witness. Let's take a look at the clip.
Oh, Akbar.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
We're reunited again.
Yes, I'm so excited.
I'm so happy to see you back. Thank you for
you.
being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for producing such an amazing film.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no,
Seriously.
I'm very excited. I'm here, representing my team for the film Witness. It was written by Saif John, and then it was directed by me and him, and produced by me along with two other producers, Omar Al-Dakil and Shahryar Hassan. And the way I came into this film was probably about, I don't know, two and a half years ago.
Yeah.
So it's been a bit of a journey, and
Yeah.
we're just grateful that it's like making its round and the
Yeah.
festival circuit and opening a lot of conversations. So
And when
Yeah.
you're sharing this, for anyone that hasn't seen the film, how do you describe the film?
yeah, so Witness centers the story on a revered imam who has this moral dilemma of a specific male congregant member and treating him as a son, but then recognizing some new information about him that kind of shifts his perspective. What he discovers is that he's trans. And it's just really this conversation around an understanding of the Quran, of what defines a man and a woman, especially when it comes to serving as witnesses of a nikah, which is a wedding ceremony within the Muslim culture.
I program for a lot of queer festivals and juries and things. I go as far as saying it's one of the most important films I've ever seen in the queer space, let alone the trans space.
I'm sure Saif will be so happy to hear that.
Saif, we love you. We love you. And we're so proud of you. It really is. It really is. It's defiant. It's defiant. It's one of those movies that can change and influence in the way that you only hope film can. So I hope you know that we're all extremely proud
Thank you.
to have your film with us, because I have not stopped thinking about it since I've seen it. And that's all down to all of you for creating this iconic film. I got to meet some of your cast last night.
Yes.
Sean, we love you too. But tell us about how you brought your cast together and how that process was. Because your cast, everybody was brilliant.
Yeah.
Like, what a cast.
Yeah. No, thank you. I mean, I really, as a director, I just have so much fun with like directing performances, and they just blew me away because I didn't really have to, both Saif and I didn't really have to give much direction. But we had this casting director named Kirtana Sastry, who, when she had met with both Saif and I, she said, "Who is your dream cast member for the imam?" And I said, "Well, if I said my dream, person, then, I don't think that's possible. So like, tell me what's realistic." And she goes, "No, just try me." So then I said Farhan Tahir, who had been in Iron Man and Star Trek. He was like the first person of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to ever speak in Urdu, which was like a really big deal for the South Asian community. And now he has his own spin-off show that's being created by the same MCU called Vision Quest. And so she goes, "All right, let me just reach out to him." And so then
You're like,
it
okay,
was
okay.
like all these forces that kind of just,
Wow.
led to him. And then we had this amazing conversation with him. And I thought it was just him, truly wanting to get to know us before deciding whether or not to join the project. And so we were jamming, for about an hour. And by the end, I'm like looking at Saif through the Zoom call, and I'm like, "So Farhan, will you please join our project?" He goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I already joined the project. I just wanted to get to know you guys." So it was like, It was amazing. So
Wow.
that was such a key role, because there was a very specific reason Saif and I chose to have this film shown through the perspective of the imam, as someone that's non-trans, Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he was
Wow.
electric. He's
Yeah.
electric. And so then, along with Kirtana's help, we were able to cast Nema Adeni, who's the polyglot. She speaks so many different languages. And that conversation that happens between the father and daughter is really the core message of this film. What about all the things that you taught me about the Quran versus our true understanding of acceptance? And then Michael, you know, who plays Salim as not really the antagonist, because there's no antagonist of this film. It's just more the person who had actually been going through the nikah and then now recognizing that he married out of wedlock due to the specific rules of that Quran, of the Quran, as you know, of the witnesses of the ceremony. And then Sean Dasani. Sean, it was very important to both Saif and I that we had casted authentically for the trans role. And Sean is someone I knew before. And just, I was so grateful that he happened to be in LA and he was interested in auditioning for this part. And then he just nailed the audition, like to the point that we were in tears. And he has his own like spiritual transformation that he tapped into for his performance. And I was just very grateful. So
I mean, all three were just like, I mean, they all just, I loved watching them all. Like, I really did. I was just like, wow. And there was just, I found myself stop breathing at moments because they just had looks on moments. It just gave us so much. It must be fun for you as a director when you're like, I'm working with this amazing cast, right?
Totally,
you know,
totally.
What was your
it just makes our job easier for sure.
What was your process working with them? Like, was it rehearsals? Did you kind of, how did that kind of lay out for you as a director?
Yeah, so part of so given that I had directed short films before, part of my process is that I like doing an actual blocking rehearsal at location. And there's a whole story in regards to the location that I would love to talk about as well. But so we did this whole blocking rehearsal where I actually filmed every single part, like all the shot lists that both, you know, Saif and I and our DP, Nasheen Dalaboy, had created. And we wanted to make sure that we were actually able to edit some version of this film before we actually go into the shoot so that we're prepared as best as possible. So in that blocking rehearsal, it became a rehearsal in a way. So yes, we were fast in terms of the performances, so we weren't going all out, but it gave both Saif and I an idea of what lines to retain versus what lines to not. And then prior to that, you know, in the case of the ablution, this, you know, where they wash themselves before going into prayer, there's very specific rituals in the way that's done. And our producer, Omar Al-Dakil, had really helped them understand that. Because Michael himself is not Muslim, but he really wanted to make sure it was dialed down to, you know, to every action. So those things we had all prepared like the weeks prior to, and we would just, whatever access we could get to this masjid is what we like fully took advantage of. So, and then the most important thing I think is when we did our table read, we really try to understand intention behind each line that was written. And that's where Saif would come in with his personal experiences, is like, okay, the reason that I wrote this line is because let me tell you a little bit about my story, type of thing. And that just gave a lot more backstory for our characters. You know, some actors don't like backstory. They like to come in with their own. And it's really just a matter of like dialing into each actor and knowing what works for them. Like in the case of Farhan, he gives both of us such a range that I could easily say, can you dial that down or can you dial that up? And that's all the note that I needed to give. And then we got what we needed, you know?
Yeah. I think that was, you know, I really did feel every line felt intentional. Like it did have that effect. And I love that you block it out before. That's such a wise thing to do, like to block it out before you come. And, you know, also the proof of just making sure that you've got people on set that can relate to the experience so that they know that the prayer process and what that looks like. That's the epitome of why you have to have people on set that can relate to the experiences of that are there, so you can, you know, support each other and support the narrative, right? I'm just so happy to see this film, and I'm also just so moved about what this can do in the space for queer Muslims and what that looks like, and just in general what it can look like in so many different spaces. It's a really hard question, but like, and maybe it's a multifaceted question, but so what did you want your audience to experience from your film?
Yeah, so I think it was important for both Saif and I to have the audience come away with wanting to have the conversation. So specifically, you know, the Muslim community, it was important that we had this film through the perspective of the Imam and not Shams, because Shams does not need to transform. He was fine and perfect just the way he is, just by existing. I think the Imam is where that moral dilemma is of traditional ways of thinking, or the way that we've all been taught to think versus a new way of thinking. Yeah, so the best way to sum up the message, the takeaway, is our DP, Nashin Dadaboy, she said that her mother is generally pretty strict and very, very devout. When she watched the film, the very first thing she says, oh, we should look after people like Shams. And that summed it up for us.
That's it, isn't
yeah.
it? Oh my God, I got goosebumps with that because it's just really just the idea of open up conversation,
Yes.
right? And just that's amazing. And I think the one thing you really did is there was a real respect for everyone's position and everyone's perspective and everyone's roles in this kind of like learning experience through each of the characters. And I thought that was also really respectfully done, because it's quite easy sometimes in a movie you can kind of sway to one perspective and not the other, but you really did a great way of just like, you know, grasp, well done, say for the good writing obviously, but really grasp that really, really well.
Thank you.
Also, you're going to share about the location, about that experience as well.
Yeah. So, given the topic of this story, we did get rejected by quite a few mosques and masjids. They just said, sorry, not at this time. And so we were ready to pivot to actually creating our own kind of production design through Mehdi, our production designer, Mehdi Benani. We were going to do like a small town, like community center type of masjid or mosque, or, you know, place of worship. And so the challenge we would have had is like, okay, how do we create an ablution room where there's faucets there, you know, for cleaning and things like that. But we were ready to pivot if we had to. And then our producer, Omar Al-Dakil, he had access to a masjid that he also practices in, and he had reached out, and we were transparent with them with the script, and they said the imam himself, who ended up being an inspiration for the imam in our film, he says, I support stories like this. I will give you freedom to film here. The only thing that we ask so that I can protect this place of worship is that you do not disclose the name of this place. And nor do you mention us in the credits. And so we had all our cast and crew sign NDAs, and we weren't able to really take BTS photos while we were there, or like while we were filming, just also for the protection of, you know, Safe and Shams, you know, and it was open for other, you know, for public members to come in. But thankfully, for some reason, it was very low traffic during that time. But anytime we did have traffic, we always shut down our shoot so that we could be able to allow them to pray and then restart after they leave. But yeah, so
That's
I mean, I'm
amazing.
hoping
That's
that very step that we were able to do that. I think that's just a really big step, honestly.
It's a huge step, and even
Yeah.
just someone that had the gesture to sort of say, I support stories.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, we can't build Rome in a day, right? But like, it's so great when you've got those people that advocate, and I think that's really just a step in the right direction. I can't imagine working on this film, not looking back and thinking, what have I learned from this whole experience? What have you learned from this whole experience?
I've probably learned the most, honestly. I was the very first person brought onto this project. Saif himself wrote the script, and he had won this $10,000 grant from Tasvir that had it in partnership with Netflix. And he had a very certain time limit in which he had to make this film in order to keep those funds. And he never made a film before. And I think this might have been one of the first scripts that he had written, but it was something that had been percolating within him. And so I'm glad he was encouraged to actually write it and submit it. And so when I joined, there was a lot of learning to do in general, like from my side, to understand the Muslim culture, because I'm the only non-Muslim of our principal team. And there was a lot of him learning about how to make a film. So it was like really a joint learning in that sense, you know, for a whole year. And then there was of course, life events happening at the same time. So then that would take our, you know, time away, and then we'd come back in. And then finally, once we decided when we were actually going to shoot the film, we were able to get all the principals on board and commit to that date. And I said, at this point, there's no turning back. We have to make it work, right? But I would say, I mean, this is like a found family for me because of how much I learned from my DP, from my producer, Omar Al-Dakil, who understands the Quran and Arabic language like so incredibly well. And he was so instrumental in us choosing the specific verses that we had. And then Sharia Hassan has a very laid back and more relaxed view of Islam, and the way he brought that energy onto set. And then of course Saif, you know, with his personal story, ensuring that there's no that the trans representation was so important, specifically in this Muslim setting. I honestly, I was the one that walked away with the most learned experience of by far. You know?
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, they're lucky to have you as well.
Thank
You
you.
bring so much to the table and all your energy and your experience. So trust me, you're all wonderful together.
Yeah.
Where are you taking us next? What's going on?
Yeah, so we're excited. I'm actually headed to Bentonville in Arkansas on Tuesday. We're screening there on June 20th. And then after there, we're going to London. We're having our European premiere at Raindance Film Festival.
I love
So we'll be
Raindance.
screening there on June 23rd and 24th. And
Amazing.
That's incredibly exciting for us.
And
because-
you going?
Yes, I'm
excited.
And the reason why Safe couldn't come to this is
Yeah.
he was on his way to London already. So
that's
I'm just really excited
amazing.
because Raindance is like a dream festival,
It's
but
great.
also like European cinema is something I
Yeah.
consume often, and so
Yeah.
it'd be great to see how they
Yeah.
react to a film like this. But the fact that it even got accepted just
Yeah.
means that it's a really big step for us. So
Okay, well, all those Brits, I hope those Brits give you a great time if you get the chance to meet my good friend.
Yeah.
But listen, go and have a good time. We are super proud of you, super proud of everybody with Witness. This, as I say, this was one of the most important films we've seen in a long time, and we're so proud of all of you, so thank you very much.
Thank
Radha.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it,
right,
guys.
everybody.